working in Unreal Engine has been definitely an interesting experience as I try to take this game idea and create some sort of concept, gameplay, way of playing it essentially, and realizing that what I see versus what I want to do versus what we can do do not all align with one another. First off, I realized just by looking at this environment that I initially built that it wasn't, one, big enough, and two, the right type of environment needed for the type of gameplay that I wanted. And then I eventually realized that the gameplay that I wanted versus the story that was developed weren't going to match up with each other either, which means I had to choose which one was more important, the gameplay aspect or the story aspect. So the first thing that I had to do was create a bigger environment. So I started working on that right away, playing with the landscape system, because before I was just trying to make it without using the landscape system, and then I tried jumping into it, and then I was getting frustrated with it, and it just wasn't being optimized to where I needed to be for my computer system to handle it. I did some research and figured out what was the best way to use the landscape system while keeping it optimized at the same time in order to make it an effective approach in the Unreal Engine for developing this environment that we would need. Another part of that was also needing to develop a camera system that would fit with the gameplay structure or the story structure, as I eventually figured out, as I said before, that they weren't necessarily going to align with one another. I fought with this camera system for what felt like forever. Days on days is what it felt like, even though it was only several hours. Only for when I finally figured out how to get it to do what I wanted it to do, well, it ended up destroying other parts of the game, and I didn't know why. So I took a day or two to sit back and be like, okay, where do we need this to go? What direction do we want to follow? Because this is going to really determine what we're able to do and what direction we need to follow in continued development. Did I want the gameplay more, or did I want the story more? Which one was more appealing, and which one was going to be more likely to be successful, and which one was more likely going to be something that people would be likely to play as far as the players that I wanted to develop a game for? As I was thinking about it when looking at the story, I realized that the gameplay didn't need as many changes as I thought that it would. In fact, it'd be a lot easier to develop if I decided to follow more of a standard gameplay style that interlinked with the story itself. But along the lines, I knew that I needed to make some story changes to optimize the story better for more standard gameplay ideas, or for more standard gameplay methods. So this means that I had to, one, start the project file over again in order to figure out what errors were being made to begin with, figure out what the camera system is going to be, which I haven't quite gotten there yet as I started rebuilding this new environment, going even deeper into the design phase, changing kind of how I wanted to approach creating this demo altogether. At the end of the day, I knew that the story meant a lot, and I wanted to be able to shift how I was doing this. So rather than creating a gameplay demo, instead I wanted to create a story concept teaser. So like I said, I broke the project again. I had to start with something new, so I decided to start with an empty project file this time. That means that there was very little to no standard foundations already set up in the Unreal Engine project itself, which means it would give me more full control in order to be able to understand where everything was linked together, what everything looked like, so that way if I did break something, it'd be a lot easier to go back and figure out what I broke, because I'd actually know what everything looked like and what was going on, rather than having to spend hours upon hours digging through every blueprint file, every asset to figure out where everything broke or disconnected. So with full control, I was able to jump into getting the environment designed in a better way that would basically allow for me to move ahead with getting this gameplay trailer that is no longer about the gameplay, but rather about the story built and put together. So what I really have to show off for this development vlog is really just progress in building this new environment. As you can see, I am implementing a lot more actual design to the environment itself. Creating a path for the character will end up following in the trailer, but also giving it the ability to have different elements throughout this trailer for you guys to see what type of things would be implemented into the full game. Obviously the environment is not quite finished yet, but it's come in a long way, and I'm excited. This is the furthest that I've gotten in this project so far without starting over. And now I wanted to show off a couple different areas of the design and optimizing phase with everything, but unfortunately my computer did not enjoy trying to record everything and work on the optimization at the same time. So I had to stop recording while I worked on that. But now that that's done, I've been able to set it up so that the rendering path is a little bit easier to handle for the computer, that is, because rather than trying to render everything in the entire map all at once, there is a level of distance mode set up where it will only render out to a certain max and minimum distance for everything. So like all the foliage, the trees, the environment itself, it'll only render out so far. And while it's become fairly optimized, there will actually be changes made to that even further. What we really want to be able to do is give you guys the story concept and let you guys decide if this is something worth finishing. So what does that look like? Well, I'm not 100% sure yet, but once we kind of know what direction we're going to go, we're going to be sure to let you know. We are going to add gameplay elements into it because we want this to not only be a cinematic trailer, we also wanted to show off what would gameplay look like inside of this game. What is combat going to look like? What is actions going to look like? What is interaction with NPCs going to look like? There's going to be a lot of variables and different options, so it's going to be curious to see how it all comes together. So really what it's going to end up looking like is like a lot of your other game trailers when they're first announced. You're going to have your cinematic elements, you're going to have your pre-alpha footage that is rendered inside the game engine itself that you guys will get to examine and look at, and you guys will obviously get the story elements as well to decide, is this a story worth investing into? So I know it's not a lot this time around, but I appreciate everyone's support. I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts and opinions are so far, and more about the story itself will be available hopefully sometime soon as we further along in getting everything designed and ready to develop, or rather render, that entire trailer for you guys.